How should WHO develop tools to promote efficient and equitable international access to all member states to the benefits, vaccination, medicines, and laboratory tests, and benefit sharing arrangements for emerging pathogens?
Thank you so much. In 2005, I was working in WHO, and as avian influenza was becoming a problem in Southeast Asia, I was seconded to be coordinator on avian and pandemic influenza with Kofi Annan as Secretary General of the UN in New York. And the reason was, as I implied in the last answer, ASEAN heads of government were really anxious and worried about the potential impact of an avian influenza pandemic. As we were studying the problems of avian influenza, one particular issue came out really strongly, and it was the following: that the bird flu samples that were being taken from humans who were infected with the bird virus were being sent to 6 collaborating centers around the world to develop bird flu vaccine against the H5N1 virus. Unfortunately, those collaborating centers were primarily in industrialized countries. And a really embarrassing situation developed in 2007 when a manufacturer that had received vaccine antigen from a laboratory in a so-called advanced country tried to sell the vaccine back to a country which was affected by really serious avian influenza problems. That was the start of a process to try to change the way in which benefits were shared. And I was involved in this as the UN's special envoy by that time on bird flu. And just to finish the story very quickly, I was very much the driver behind a thing called the PIP process to try to get equitable sharing of benefits. I don't think we've got it right. I think still there is unequal access to potential candidate antigens and also to new technologies that does not enable poorer countries that are often most at risk to get what they need. I believe in the end, the only way to deal with this is through a global financing mechanism that ensures that countries most in need are first in the queue for benefit access, particularly vaccines. And we need to do more to get there, probably through some kind of international treaty process, because if it's done through voluntary financing, it will not be fair for the whole world. So that's my current position on this, and I'd be really interested to discuss this more with all of you, because I think it's actually a really urgent issue for the WHO right now.
Thank you, Dr. Nabarro. Dr. Nishtar.
Well, thank you very much for that important question, and I want to make 3 points in relation to that. But before that, I think the nuance in that question needs to be understood very clearly. The nuance in this question is that all the countries of the world contribute viruses which help to develop the vaccines, but when it comes to access to those vaccines, for some reason, it is the developed world that has the preferential access. And I think that is the real nuance in that question. Now, how do you deal with that? How does the Director General deal with that? I think that it is a much broader matter of how you lead the organization, which is why I put transparency as my #1 commitment in my 10 pledges. I think that the answer to many of the problems of the organization lie in better transparency, whether it is merit-based hirings, whether it is the validity of science, whether it is issues like this. And I think that if the Director General is committed to transparency, is committed to leading impartially, is committed to dealing with countries even-handedly, issues such as this will not arise. Now, when I tell you I'm going to do that, why should you believe me? You should not believe me because it is written in my vision document. I think you should carefully look at the past histories of all candidates to see what they have delivered, if they have delivered on the transparency agenda, if they have the ability to lead impartially. And I would like to say with great humility that when I was a minister for a relatively short duration of time, I'm known to this day for having put all my decisions in the public domain, for creating a new framework of accountability. In my civil society role, I'm known for leading on very hard issues as hard as corruption and malgovernance, but I do it in a way that is sustainable and constructive. I'm not a bull in a china shop, but I have the ability to lead on hard issues, and I have the ability to provide the transparent and impartial leadership, which is basically meant to avert the kind of things that are nuanced, excuse me, in this question. Two other points in relation to this question. The global financing mechanism, there are two schools of thought, the voluntary and the R&D. Thank you. So the R&D and which is a legally binding mechanism, and the voluntary mechanism. The next Director General, regardless of which one of the three of us that is there, is going to put the R&D mechanism on the table. But the reality of the matter is that member states are so polarized on that issue, it will take 5 years of effort, intense negotiation, and what you will come out with is a very watered down protocol. We have to be very pragmatic in our thinking about these matters. Therefore, we must do with the mandate that we have in hand. At least we must get up and running the mandate for the voluntary mechanisms that we have currently with us. And the third aspect of what this question is about is the engagement with the industry. Transparent, over-the-board engagement with the industry to make sure that we have the right stockpiles in place, to make sure that all countries have access to them equitably. And that would require very transparent and impartial implementation of the framework of FENSA. And again, it is South America which takes the credit for having negotiated it. So I think I will look at this question in a very broad perspective, not only from this particular point, but from the vantage point of many other areas. And I would deal with it through embracing transparency foremost.
Thank you very much, Doctor. Dr. Adhanom Ghebreyesus.
Thank you. When you're the last to answer, the problem is most of the ideas are gone. First of all, maybe to correct, we had the interview, 3 shortlisted here, but I'm the front runner with most votes. I think I just would like to underline that. And then on this particular issue, it's a very important issue, and I will not repeat what has been said. The problem with this lack of access, one is the mentality itself, the divide between the rich and the poor. When the H1N1 pandemic was really wreaking havoc, and the stockpiles of vaccines or whatever new technology was for the rich. So how do we depart from this mentality? It's a political question. Do we really value human life? Why do people die? Because they're poor. I'll tell you an example. My own brother died at the age of 5 when I was 7 because we come from a poor family. And he died because he was born poor. And that is happening. Do we continue to accept this or address it? I think unless we answer this question, it doesn't matter whatever we say, because the root cause is that divide. So are we really serious enough to discuss this issue? That's one. And then the second issue is, I would, without repeating the other, WHO should be involved in resource mobilization. When I say resource mobilization, it's not the money that goes into its coffer. WHO may need $4 point something billion. That's not what I'm talking about. WHO should worry about the bigger envelope of funding for member states. That can be obtained through Global Fund, through Gavi, through others, to have funding available for countries who cannot make it. So that should also be addressed. And WHO, if it really leads center and front without competing with these organizations like Global Fund and Gavi, but even helping them to increase resource mobilization, increase the envelope of money that's available for global health agenda, including the emerging pathogens, then I think the developing world will be served. This should be the responsibility of WHO. It should not just worry about the budget for its own administrative cost and so on only. I worry about the global, bigger envelope of funding that's available to support those who can't. And that has to be stressed also. Thank you.